Church can organize programs that of course, parenting and the sexuality programs for the parents. It might not be easy for some. And again, we might have some coming, others not coming. But at least a few who are able to attend gets empowered and then becomes the light to the others. And again, to demystify the belief that sexuality is a separate entity from spirituality. Because again, you are dealing with human beings, you are ministering to human beings who are physical, who are kind of living in a given culture. And therefore, what we don't say is said by others, and it affects the kind of person that we expect to bring up as a Christian. So that kind of realization can help us, can help the church be able to come up with those programs. But again, empowering the parent to realize it is my principle, it is my primary responsibility to empower my children, to grow with the children as they grow. Yeah, and that can be very critical.
And for the attitude of the church begins from what happens at home.
Yeah.
Yes, because that is what is carried.
Yeah.
How do we ensure, because it is one family and another one that forms a church that carries that kind of attitude of separating spirituality and sexuality. How can that be done to be able to help the church embrace the importance of this?
One is to realize that our family is a reflection of the church, and the church is a reflection of the family. Now, the family forms the church, and the family is an entity of the church. So anytime you talk about the church and the culture, church culture, you are talking of the family that forms the church. So anytime you are thinking about the kind of family, the kind of attitude you wish to have for the church members, you are thinking about the kind of attitude that you nurture at the family setting. So if you have a crooked family, then would you expect it to have an upright church congregation? Then you think about the family that comes to make up the church. You talk about the values. Church remains as the custodians of the society's moral. The church religion defines political morals. It is the center of every sphere of life. But again, remember, you can't talk of it without the church. And of course, again, when you talk of this same family, it is from the family that we define the state of the kind of community and the state of the society that we have. When we talk of suicide, when we talk of when we talk of GBV, gender-based violence, it has a lot to relate with the kind of family that was raised, or the family from which the boy or the girl was coming from. There could be other traumatic experiences experienced along the way, but this has a lot to do with the background, the family from which the child was raised.
Yeah, and talking about the adverse childhood experiences and what the families, the backgrounds of various families, how do you think the experiences of parents inform their approach to behavior, to imparting values and behavior, modeling behavior to their children, and talking about sexuality? How does that inform the?
Well, this again is tying with the culture, because like now my dad, while picking tea, sometimes he could post a question: what is the size of your world? Then he asked me, where is your brother? I'm the firstborn. Where is your brother going? Because I realized anazaa too. And he posed a question: what is the size of your world, and which is your world that the Bible talks about? Are you talking of the world that you see that belongs to other people or your world? Then our dad never used to laugh. He would just smile, then create humor as we picked tea. And then later I came to ask myself, what was he saying? He is talking about us, you need to family plan. You see, these are things that were not discussed by other parents. I never heard it from any other parent, but I heard it from my dad, telling us. I remember my dad telling me that certain boys are not good because what we see, their behaviors do not reflect the kind of morality that we wish to see. I remember that when I was in primary school, Then later I asked myself, what was he saying? And when I look at the boys he was talking about, I realized there is something that I don't desire in them.
So he was evoking a conversation around,
yes.
Around a family planning.
Yes, and also the kind of people
that you need
to relate with.
Yes.
And you see, this is parental. He never talked so much about it, but later I discovered, yes, there is something that he was saying. But again, how we bring it out should be defined. Because you say, kutembea na wanaume ni dhambi, kutembea na wanawake ni dhambi. Then this person develops problems later.
Yes.
Is likely to the faculty that kind of nurtures relationship can be affected.
Yes.
That you don't relate even when you are supposed to start now engagement. You are not able to stand to sustain a relationship because this is devil. Yeah, you are told that ni dhambi, and this has never been defined.
So conversations around sexuality needs to begin at home.
At home.
It's not at school. It's not elsewhere.
Yes.
It is at home, and therefore parents need to be equipped with these skills.
Exactly.
Because they will not just pass on a legacy, but they're modeling certain behavior. They are instilling certain values. In what ways can parents be able to get this equipped with this kind of skills? I know you said parenting does not come in a manual.
I think for those that are informed, now we have the technology. You can be able to find out what is parenting, what does it really mean. I was saying that local administration, whenever they have barasas, can also be can be part of the avenues through which the community can be enlightened, and that is specifically the parents, that there is need to discuss issues of sexuality with the children, because that is the primary level. When you talk of the church, that is secondary. When you talk of the school environment, that is secondary. But the primary point through which children can have these discussions is the parental environment. But again, when you are preparing, when the ministers are preparing couples for wedding, it is important and critical that they also take, it might be a moment that is full of anxiety, but again, as they prepare them, it is also important to pose some questions or probably to bring in issues of parenting, because sometimes some of the issues that cause divisions and kind of separation and some of these are around children and parenting maybe. Sometimes, and issues coming around that. It is important probably to talk about it again. Yeah, these are very critical. Well, COVID-19 is a challenge that has really affected the world. But again, it has also opened an opportunity for us to learn a few lessons that probably we have not been able to learn earlier. That is through the handy way. One, parents, like we are now talking about sexuality and maybe what is happening today and the stigma that is around the girl child. We need to realize that it is now in the light that parental responsibility has not been to the absolute, because you have always thought that children are taken care by the teachers, or probably the church takes responsibility over the children, and as far as sexuality is concerned. Now, looking at it, it is very important as the public and as society to realize that there is a lot of stigma upon this girl child. But the reality is that the girl child who has already become pregnant is not becoming pregnant. The girl is already pregnant. And there are others, of course, that probably could be suffering other challenges or probably doing abortion, securing abortion, so that probably the family doesn't get abandoned or probably their status doesn't get affected. Some are covering, they could be covering this. But again, it is important to know, to destigmatize the children, that they are not becoming pregnant. Though they are pregnant, again, they are still human beings. This is your child. Appreciate that the situation has opened up what you never knew about your responsibility. Now it is important for the parents to take responsibility from there. Love your child, help the child. Love your child, help the child to deal with the behavior. Think about the boy who is in the bush, who has probably committed this. Think about the relative who has caused this. But at the immediate point, let us appreciate the daughter as a human person, as a child. But then help the child to deal with the stigma. Help the child to deal with the trauma. And then assist the child to progress on with life. To realize I'm still human, I'm still lovable, I'm still loved, I still have my dream, and I can still achieve my dream.
Oh, I like the approach. When the situation, when it has already happened, that's a really reconciliatory approach, so that the child does not get lost. You don't lose the child in the process. In terms of prevention and in terms of preventing the children from getting there, what do you think parents can do?
Now, it is upon the parents now to learn from what is happening and from the cases that are now being shared without really shying off. That I have a responsibility over my boy, over my daughter, to talk about abstinence, to talk about sexuality and the value it has, but what time is it, are you ripe for it? It is not, sexuality is not evil. But again, when are you ripe for it? And what does it mean to you? What other responsibilities do you have up to what time, up to when do you make certain decisions? That probably, as far as certain levels of relationship are concerned. But we appreciate our children as children, bring them here, then talk about sexuality. Talk about motherhood. Talk about talk about sexuality. Very important. But first of all, appreciate the child as a child. Because life is not found in so many things that we have. Life, let them know they have life, they have hope, they have a dream, they have a vision. Though they have succumbed to the pregnancy. But again, let us as community, let us take our responsibility as parents. And let it also be a responsibility of us as community. So the current times, the communal kind of I am because we are is no longer there, that I took care of my neighbor's child and my left neighbor's child or my right neighbor's child. Today it is upon the parent, the individual parent, to take responsibility. But let us as a society take responsibility. I take care of his child, he takes care of my child. And I look at his child as my child, her child as my child. And the church comes on board now to balance, and the local administration, their barazas, and any opportunity, empower the community and talk about it without criminalizing and without stigmatizing.
Wow, thank you so much. So the parents have got a role to prevent teenage pregnancies, but also a responsibility when it happens.
Yes.
To be able to take care of the children and to ensure that they continue with their life without the stigma that comes with teenage pregnancies.
With this kind of trauma that is succumbed at this time by this pregnant girl, expectant girl, it is likely to affect generations. Because if the trauma is not handled, is not really diffused, if the child is not really debriefed, if the persona of the child is not appreciated, this is likely to become a developmental trauma that is likely to affect the child in later days as a professional, as a member of the community, as a member of the church. So this is a very critical time to take care of the child so that it doesn't escalate to other stages of life.
Thank you so much, Chief Inspector Kang'entu. We really appreciate the time that you've given to us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for letting us in your world outside of law enforcement and the counseling services that you do at the Administration Police Service. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And it's a conversation that we'll continue with in the future because it was great talking to you. Thank you.